How you doing? Today I'm going to show you how I made the Infinity Gauntlet for my 8-year-old daughter. To get the files to print the Infinity Gauntlet, I went over to thingiverse.com. I searched Infinity Gauntlet. I went with the one made by Monster Movie Props. Seemed to be the most accurate. You see here his finished product. And here's the 3D model in Simplify 3D. And we're going to go ahead and shrink it down to 70% so it'll fit my daughter. I did measurements on her hands, and her hand's about 70% of mine, so that's what I went with. And here we are printing it. We're using a FlashForge Creator to print the files, using Amazon Gold PLA. I had some issues with this PLA printing the fingers. As you'll see later, the fingers are actually printed out of a Fox Smart Red. Here's my daughter test fitting the print after it's done. The first step to finishing the print, we're going to go ahead and prime it. I'm using a Rust-Oleum 2-in-1 filler and sandable primer. I put on 3 coats. Waited about 15 to 20 minutes between each coat, and let it sit and dry. As you can see here, the red Fox Smart PLA for the fingers and some of the palm parts. Next, I'm going to use some Bondo to fill in the larger gaps. Add some hardener and mix it together. Be careful how much hardener you have. If you add too much, it'll harden up way too fast. I'm just going to take my hands and kind of push it in because of all the shapes, and it'd be difficult to do it with any other tool. Took my time, make sure I got it in all the cracks. That way we can get a nice smooth finish on the part. After the Bondo dried, I went ahead and wet sanded everything. I started with a 220 grit up to a 500, then up to a 1200. Just took my time, sanded it, sanded. Sanded some more. And then some more. And this is the wrist and the palm after the sanding. Next, I went ahead and painted everything. I'm using Krylon Color Master Metallic Gold as the base. I applied 2 coats of paint, allowing a dry time between each coat. I had actually primed the fingers separately, sanded them down, and then to paint them, I assembled them just to make sure that the paint didn't get gummed up in the joints, and I got a good coat on everything and everywhere. Here are some of the parts after paint. As you see, the Krylon Metallic leaves a nice shiny gold. Now we're going to make the Infinity Stones. I used some of these rainbow gemstones. I actually got this pack at Walmart. I'm using a disc sander to sand them down to the proper shape and size. Next, I scratched off the back coating so that LED light can show through. I tried to be a little random with this so that the stones all looked a little different. Next, I CA'd the stones in place, just to hold them, tack them in, until I get some hot glue in there to hold them in permanently. Here's the gauntlet with all the stones glued in. As you notice, the soul stone's clear. We're going to have to paint that later. To illuminate the Infinity Stones, I'm using 12-volt LED diodes. To illuminate the Infinity Stones, I'm using 12-volt LED lights. I got these off Amazon. They include the wires and the resistor already. And I'm going to pigtail all 6 down to the battery lead. And to power it, I'm going to be using a 3-cell lithium battery that produces 12 volts. And once I get them all cut and sized, I'm going to solder them together. I know here you see I'm using a black wire to connect to the red. I just happen to have the right size black wire available. I am, however, covering it with a red shrink tube to make sure that they don't get mixed up. And now what I'll do is hot glue the LEDs in behind the stones into the palm. Get them all hot glued in real good. I'll hot glue the wires down to make sure they're tacked up and don't come loose or get snagged. Now I'm connecting the battery connection, heat shrinking the soldering joints. Here's the battery. It's a 450 milliamp 3-cell LiPo battery. And we'll test out the gauntlet and make sure it works. Now I'm painting over the hot glue just to make sure no light comes through onto the back of the hand when it's illuminated. And now we'll start assembly. I'm going to run this stretch cord material through the palm wings and then glue it into the wrist. And what I actually ended up doing was, instead of just using the elastic to hold it only, I glued in the corners on the wings as well to keep them more stable. We'll pull some of this elastic cord through the finger joints, and what we'll eventually do with this is pull it down into the palm and hot glue it in so it stays in place, because it holds the fingers down onto your own fingers nice and tight. And here we are test fitting everything, make sure it works good before we start assembling the final product. And here we are with everything glued in. Now I'll attach this elastic to the palm and glue it down into the wrist. Pull down in there and hot glue it in. Now that it's all glued together, we have a completely articulating wrist. And now we'll go ahead and paint the soulstone orange using a Tester's orange translucent paint. And this piece of foam we're going to attach into the gauntlet just to make it so the wrist doesn't move around and it's nice and solid around the arm. And now the fun part, making the inner glove. Before this I've had zero sewing experience. I got some fabric, traced my daughter's hand. I've never sewed anything in my life before this. Couldn't find an adequate glove. I said, how hard can it be to sew? Pin 2 pieces together with some pins and loaded it in the machine. And here we go off to the races sewing. Cut it out. Then you flip it over, put it on, and the first one seemed to fit pretty good. A little binding in the fingers, thought I was close, but boy was I wrong. Next. Next. Got it this time for sure, right? I think we finally got it. And here we go. A glove that fits pretty well. So here I'm sewing on the back half of the glove. It goes up the arm. The trick I did was I have a solid piece on the back. The palm side I have a stretchable material so it fits on her nice and tight. I sprayed it the same color as the glove, as you can see. And you put the glove on, and then you stick your hand into the gauntlet. And here's the completed Infinity Gauntlet, all ready to take over the world, or I guess in this case, the playground. And that's it. That's how I made the Infinity Gauntlet. Thank you for watching, and have a great day.